Hello and welcome to On the Right Track Career Stories with Jane Christophe, a video series and podcast about real people, their real careers and real lives. Today, we've got Meg Pickersgill. She's a registered nurse. Thank you very much for your time today, Meg. And let's just get right into the conversation. Tell us what you do for a living.
Sure. So I actually have two jobs. From Monday to Friday, I work at Surrey Place, which is an organization in Toronto for kids with developmental disabilities and adults as well. And in that role, it's really a community nursing role. So I get to follow patients and their families over a long period of time. I'm working with different teams consulting on health and medication issues. Some of the teams I work on work with kids who have autism and severe challenging behaviors. I also work in another clinic that helps kids transition from the pediatric system to the adult system. And so it's a lot of work in interprofessional teams, usually with behavior therapists, speech, OT, physicians, for a real kind of wraparound service for the families. And then I also work at St. Mike's Hospital in Toronto in the trauma and neurosurgery unit. And that's where I started my nursing career. And when I moved to Surrey Place, I stayed on as a casual employee so that I could pick up shifts every once in a while and keep those acute care skills.
Okay, so how do you balance your week between the two roles, time-wise and so on?
Yeah, so Monday to Friday, kind of normal working hours is at Surrey Place. And then a few times a month, I'll pick up a shift at the hospital. So it's not too much. I like to try and give myself a good work-life balance.
Well, good for you. Now, can you tell us how you arrived where you are today? How'd you get here?
Sure, yeah. So it's a bit of a meandering path for me. When I graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to do something science. I went to McGill and got a Bachelor of Science in Anatomy and Cell Biology. But I really didn't have a clear picture of where I wanted to end up. So when I finished that degree, I got a job in research and pretty quickly realized that that was not for me. I kind of missed the direct kind of clinical work. Research was a little bit too far removed from me. But I didn't really know what to do next. So I saved up some money. I took a year off and traveled around the world. And then when I came back, I had a couple of friends that were working with children with autism as behavior therapists. So I got a job at an autism center. I really, really loved the work. I loved being able to provide therapy one-on-one with a child, but also be able to help their families access services, really get to know the families. But I didn't see a lot of room for growth in that field. It's very frontline heavy and there's not a lot. I didn't see a lot more that I could do beyond the role that I was already doing. So I started kind of asking around family, friends, seeing who I could job shadow to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up talking to a nurse and thought nursing sounded good. So I applied. I did the 2-year accelerated Bachelor of Science in Nursing program at U of T. And when I finished, my first job was in trauma neurosurge at St. Mike's. And I loved it. I loved that it's fast paced. It's a downtown trauma center. So we get all kinds of cases that are very, very interesting from a clinical perspective. But I kind of missed that being able to follow someone long-term. When you're in acute care, as soon as they leave the hospital, you don't really know what happens to them. And so I found this opportunity at Surrey Place, and it was kind of a perfect marrying of my two careers, the nursing and then the autism therapy. And it was just such a perfect fit.
Sounds amazing. So with Surrey Place, you have a Monday to Friday, and then you can get the exciting work with the hospital here and there.
Exactly.
Or once a week, you were saying, I think?
Yeah, so once a week or a few times a month, I'll go for a hospital shift, but it is nice to have regular working hours. I don't really miss the night shifts.
That sounds hard. What was that like? What are the night shifts like?
Well, it's interesting. The first night shift that you do is while you're still a nursing student, and that first shift is tough. But I worked at the bedside for almost 3 years, and it was 2 weeks of day shifts and then 2 weeks of night shifts, and your body just adapts. and you get used to it. And I find now that I do better on very little sleep than people who are not nurses, because I think I'm just kind of used to it.
Sounds excellent. Now, talk to us a little bit about high school. You graduated from high school, you went to McGill in a science program. You knew that you wanted to do something in the sciences. How did you know that?
Well, it's funny. I actually didn't know that.
Okay.
In high school, one of my struggles was that I was interested in a lot of things. So I loved biology and chemistry, but I also really liked history.
Mm-hmm.
And I played piano, and my piano teacher wanted me to apply for a Bachelor of Music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up applying for all three. I applied for science, arts, and music. And I think there was some family persuasion that science might be more of a concrete route. And that's why I ended up going that way. But it was a little bit hard for me to choose.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end of your degree, you ended up going into research. Why did you choose that at the end of your first?
Well, yeah, when you graduate with a Bachelor of Science, there aren't that many jobs that it prepares you to do right away. Usually people with a Bachelor of Science go on to do something in addition to that. And I had done some research with a professor at McGill while I was there, and I was offered a job, and I didn't know what else I was going to be doing, so it seemed like a good job to take. And I'm glad that I did, because I was kind of considering maybe going for a master's and ending up in research, and it was good for me to see pretty early on that research was not for me.
Mm-hmm. And so trying out these different roles and figuring out that it's not for you, that's a really important part of your career and learning process, figuring out who you are. So there's definitely no waste in that. Tell us a bit about what a typical day looks like for you at Surrey Place.
Sure. So what I love about my job at Surrey Place is that all of my days are different. So some days are really clinical, and I'll be seeing patients and their families through the day, working with the interprofessional teams, doing a lot of that frontline work. Mm-hmm. Other days, I might be developing tools. We develop a lot of tools for healthcare providers so that they have more information on how to work with our population, because it's quite a unique population. And then other days I might be teaching a lecture at one of our nursing or medical programs in Toronto. We like to provide some education to future healthcare providers on how to work with people with intellectual disabilities. So it's really varied. Right now I'm doing a lot of infection control work as well. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of opportunity for kind of steering what I want to do next. If I have an idea for a project that I want to work on or collaboration, they're quite open to it, which is really nice.
Okay, so what do you think surprised you the most about your work? What were you not expecting that you come across?
I think one of the most surprising things about nursing is the opportunities for leadership. I wasn't aware that there's a lot of hospital CEOs, there are most of the unit managers at hospitals are nurses. There's even positions in the Ministry of Health and the government that are nursing positions. And so I think before I went into nursing, I had a good idea of what a bedside nurse does, but I didn't realize that there were so many other things that a nurse can do. And so that was a nice surprise for me.
Okay, excellent. What would you tell young people today who have no idea about their direction?
Yeah, I kind of wish someone had told me this, that it's okay to not know what you want to do. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on very young students to Definitely. Find a pathway and go for it. And I think it's really valuable to try different things. So get as much exposure to different types of jobs as you can in high school, in post-secondary, and then even once you're finished school. I find that a lot of people are very open to having you job shadow for a day and having you come in and see what a day is really like in the role that you're looking at. So I think my advice would be to reach out to people, but also it's okay if you don't know what you want to do at 18 or at 20 or even at 25, you have time.
Excellent tip. Now, what is the most important skill or what are the most important skills for nursing?
So nursing is that you have to have both the science and the art of nursing, I think. So nurses really need a good, solid foundation in health sciences, strong critical thinking skills, good time management, and the ability to prioritize. And those are things that you learn in nursing school. But you also need to have the soft skills that it's harder to teach. Nurses are compassionate, being able to empathize with your patient and their situation and why it's brought them to you in the clinical, when you're meeting them in a clinical setting. A lot of patience is important in nursing, and I think a good sense of humor as well. Nurses deal with a range of emotions from the people that they're working with, and it's good to be able to take that in stride and kind of understand where people are coming from, but not take it too personally.
Wonderful. Now, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're still at an early stage in your career.
I am, yeah. So I'm actually going back to school again in the fall for a master's in nursing. And a master's in nursing is kind of cool because you can do a lot of different things with it. And so what I would like to see, I see a lot of gaps in the system, especially for the population that I'm currently working with, people with intellectual disabilities. And I'd love to develop maybe some province-wide learning for nursing students and medical students on working with this population. I think that there's some room for some leadership within the Ministry of Health on making sure that this population is seen and heard as a vulnerable population. So that's kind of my long-range goals right now.
Okay. Now, what would you tell your younger self?
I'd say it's going to be okay. Definitely when I was younger, I was so stressed out that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I felt like everybody around me did. I felt like I was the only one that was kind of lost. And so I think I would want to tell myself that, you know, I'm going to figure it out and to try different things, both for my career, but also not. The year off that I took backpacking, I think was just as valuable to my own personal growth as, you know, job shadowing and going to school. And so I think that to make sure that I know as a younger person that those things are important as well.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very important for young people to hear these messages, you know. Hindsight is so powerful, but when you're a young person trying to make decisions, it's really overwhelming sometimes. Okay, so last question. Thank you very much for sharing your time today so far, and I won't keep you too much longer, but if you weren't doing this, what would you like to do you think?
I think I would still want to be doing something that is working directly with people and making a change. That's always been really important for me. I think if it wasn't nursing, I really enjoy the teaching that I do as a nurse. And so I think I very easily could have gone into teaching as well. So it would probably be something like that. Or in, you know, a dream world, I would be a Broadway star.
Okay, wonderful. But you do have a music side to you.
I do, yeah, and I really love musicals, so that was always my plan C.
Love it. Amazing. Well, this has been a really great conversation, Meg. Thank you so much for your time today, and it sounds like you're doing a lot for people and our communities. So best wishes with your pursuit of your master's degree. And thank you for sharing all of these insights and experiences with our audience today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked the video, give us a like, and even better, subscribe. For more information, check out the links below. You'll get lots of scoop about other social media platforms, more information about our interview guests, and the services available from Right Track Education. Have a great day and best wishes to everyone.